Hello everybody and welcome to our webinar. I'm Jess Brooke, Early Career Committee Chair for the British Society of Soil Science, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to our fourth Unearth Your Potential Early Careers workshop, which is on how to peer review. Before I welcome our presenters, I would like to introduce the British Society of Soil Science as hosts of today's session. We are an established international membership organisation and charity committed to the study of soil in its widest aspects. We bring together those working in academia and have a growing membership amongst practitioners implementing soil science in industry and those with a keen interest in soils. Before we begin, just some basic housekeeping. All of your microphones have been muted. We will be taking questions at the end of the session and we will be monitoring these throughout. So please submit any questions at any point in the chat box or the question box, but at least by 10:50 to allow us to get through as many as we can. Today's presentation has also been awarded BASIS and NROSO CPD points. If you're registered with either body, please contact us directly after the event. And finally, please be aware we are recording today's presentation. So, on to the workshop, which we are pleased to be hosting in partnership with Wiley, who publishes the BSSS Journals, the European Journal of Soil Science and Soil Use and Management. So we have three presenters today. We've got Professor Roland Bol, Professor Leo Condron, and Melissa Clasper, and we also have a short video presentation from Dr. Dan Evans towards the end. So just to introduce our speakers now. So Professor Roland Bol is the Editor-in-Chief of the European Journal of Soil Science. He is a research leader for soil organic matter and elemental cycles at an institute in Germany. He has over 35 years experience in academia and research, and his research has predominantly focused on the complex biogeochemistry processes that occur on the landscape scale at soil-water-air interfaces in natural and agricultural ecosystems. Roland has published over 400 journal papers relating to soil science and has supervised many MSc, PhD, postdoc students and early career scientists worldwide. Our next speaker is Professor Leo Condron. He is the Editor-in-Chief of Soil Use and Management and is a distinguished professor at Lincoln University in New Zealand. With over 38 years of experience in academia and research, his work focuses on the impacts of land use and management practices on phosphorus and organic matter dynamics in grassland and forest soils, as well as soil chronosequence biogeochemistry and the relationship between soil microbial diversity and function. Leo has authored over 350 publications, including 315 journal papers, and has played a pivotal role in mentoring the next generation of scientists, supervising more than 120 postgraduate students and postdoctoral fellows. And our final speaker is Melissa Clasper. She's a UK-based publisher at Wiley, overseeing a variety of journals in Wiley's life sciences portfolio. As publisher, often referred to as publishing development lead, Melissa is responsible for the editorial and strategic developments of journals. She works closely with editors and society partners to ensure the smooth running of journals and to identify opportunities for growth. So you'll see up on the slides in a second here, these are the learning outcomes for our session. And the presenters are going to follow on from each other, but please just feel free to submit any questions you have as we go. So to start off, I'm going to hand over to Melissa.
Thank you, Jess, for that lovely introduction. First of all, I just wanted to introduce the general concept of peer review and what the process is. So as mentioned by Jess, I'm Melissa and I work for Wiley, the publisher. So in a nutshell, peer review is the process of determining whether a manuscript is suitable for publication. So the manuscript will be reviewed by subject matter experts to assess the validity, quality, and originality of articles ahead of publication. The goal of peer review is to ensure that articles published are high quality and that the research has been verified by people with expertise in the subject area. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what happens when an article is submitted to a journal? What is the general peer review workflow? This is what we're going to have a look at with this slide. So the process starts with an author submitting an article. That goes straight to an editor who carries out an initial assessment, often called a desk check. With this, the editor is asking some fairly basic questions such as, is this within the journal's scope? Is it of a reasonable written standard? A significant proportion of papers do tend to be rejected at this stage before a reviewer even sees them. This isn't necessarily a judgment on the science. Very often it's simply that it's the wrong home for the paper. So if it clears that first hurdle, then it will be sent out to reviewers. So the editor will typically approach several experts in the field and ask them to evaluate the validity, quality, and originality of the work, and then make a recommendation on what next steps to take. Once the reviews come back, they are assessed by the editor, and then from there, one of three main things can happen. So the paper can be rejected, it could be outright accepted, though it's very rare for a paper to be accepted outright at this stage. And then most commonly, revisions will be required to a paper. So if a revision is required, then the author submits a revised manuscript along with a response addressing each of the reviewer comments. The editor will then decide if further review is needed. If yes, then it loops back out to the reviewers. If no further review is needed, the editor makes the final call themselves. Once accepted, the paper moves into production where copy editing, typesetting, proofs, etc. go on, and then it goes on to publication online. There are two main things worth taking away from this diagram. So firstly, notice that it's a loop, not a straight line. It's not necessarily a straightforward process. So revision is the normal outcome, and this could be a minor revision where only a few tweaks are needed, or a major revision where quite a few tweaks are needed to the paper. It's worth noting that when revision is required, this is not a failure. So if you're on the receiving end of it as an author, it's just for constructive feedback. So please try not to take reviewer comments to heart. Secondly, notice where the arrows converge. So every single one comes back to the editor. So the reviewers advise and then the editor decides. In terms of the timescale, this whole process typically takes somewhere from a few weeks, if you're lucky, or generally several months. The single biggest variable here is how quickly the reviewers respond, which is a fairly good argument for why the community needs more people who are willing to review and why we're all here today. Next slide, please. So let's unpack a little bit about who actually does what during the peer review process. So reviewers in a journal are the expert evaluators, so to speak. So a reviewer's job is to help the editor judge whether a manuscript is suitable for publication within that journal. So they'll assess the quality, validity, and integrity of the work. In practice, that means asking questions such as, are the methods sound? Do the data actually support the conclusions? Is the work original? And is it clearly enough presented that someone else could build upon it? They're lending their specific technical expertise on a single manuscript, and crucially, they are advising, not deciding. Editors are the decision makers and the custodians of the journal, so their role is much broader than the role of the reviewers. They screen papers on submission, they choose who to send a paper to, they weigh up the reviews that come back, which can sometimes disagree with each other, so they then make the final call based off these recommendations. And beyond any individual paper, they're also responsible for the journal's direction over time, what it publishes, and the standards it's holds. So the editor role is a lot broader than that of the reviewers, who will focus on one particular manuscript at a time. We also have editorial boards. So the editorial boards sit alongside the editor. They provide subject expertise across the breadth of the field, and they often review manuscripts themselves. They can advise on strategy. Very importantly, they act as ambassadors for the journal, promoting it and encouraging good work to be submitted to it. Editorial board structures can vary greatly from journal to journal, and every journal will operate slightly differently. So sometimes editorial board members are a lot more active in handling manuscripts than others. I'm sure Roland and Leo may elaborate on this later on in the presentation, or if we get any questions at the end, we can talk a little bit more about it there. Next slide, please. So this is my final slide, and I just wanted to include this table to summarize the key differences between the role of editors and reviewers. So the bottom line here is that reviewers provide guidance and recommendations, and the editor makes the final decision. So speaking of editors, it's time for me to hand over to our wonderful editors-in-chief. I believe Roland is going to go next. So that's all from me for now. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay, so a little bit of a recap, yeah. So yeah, what is peer review, yeah? Peer review is the process where experts from specific fields or discipline evaluate the quality of a peer review research. to assess the validity, quality, and often originality of articles for publication. Yeah, is a kind of the foundation for safeguarding the quality and integrity of scholarly research. Yeah, it's the basis of where everything happens. Yeah, so peer review is really important, as also Melissa says. Without peer review, no publication. Yeah, so and peer review is an integral part of kind of the publication process. Yeah. And if you publish, you should also review. Yeah, it's a kind of dance. Yeah. So, okay, what are the benefits, and why do we do that? Yeah. Ultimately, it must enhance the quality. Yeah. It improves the overall quality of the research by providing authors with constructive feedback and suggestions for revision. Yeah. So, it helps you to get a better paper. Yeah. So it's not. It really is a kind of way to make your work better. And we're all human, and of course we all make little mistakes or big mistakes, yeah. And peer review, they can see those. They look at these inaccuracies, these methodological issues, and these gaps in reasoning, yeah. And ultimately, is even at the end of the process, there may still be some kind of little mistakes, yeah. So it isn't perfect, but it improves the quality of your papers by a lot, yeah. So sometimes you find still little mistakes, but yeah, it is it is a process. At the bottom you can see that Wiley has a lot of information on peer review, yeah. And so if you look at the web, you can find a lot of information about peer review, which goes in much more depth than what we can do in this in this small hour, yeah. Okay, what is needed, yeah, for peer review, yeah? I think time, yeah. You need to take time. It takes time, yeah. You also need to be kind of interested in it, yeah. And of course, it requires a kind of dedication, yeah. It takes time and dedication, yeah. And of course, why you're all here is it also takes kind of expertise, yeah. You need to have the expertise. You have some experience, and you need to do it, yeah. You get better if you do it, yeah, over time. So it's a kind of learning process. I'm still learning, yeah. So I don't know how many of you have experience in peer review, yeah. How many have you have you got a first, second, or? But I think when you get this question, when you get this invitation, yeah, you should ask yourself, yeah, is this journal you're reviewing to, does it fit your skills, yeah? Do you have an affiliation to it? Yeah. Think about the paper they ask you to review, yeah? To review a research paper, a short communication, a review, an opinion paper, or data paper, it requires slightly different skills, yeah? So, for example, a review paper, is a kind of much more difficult in a kind of way because you need to review the review, yeah? Whereas a kind of research paper is kind of more standard, yeah. Also, when you when you get the information, yeah, look at the title and the abstract, yeah. Do you feel it's understandable or makes sense, yeah? If you already, feel this kind of title and abstract does not mean anything to you, yeah, or you can't get any feeling about it, yeah, just then stop it, yeah. Just don't go any further, don't interact with it, yeah. And you must ask yourself, of course, when you say, okay, I like this paper, I would like to do it, but ask yourself, do you have all the skills, part of the skills, yeah? But it's okay if you have part of the skills, yeah, because you can write, yeah, when you do the review, you can say, I commented on this paper, but my skills are, I'm very good in statistics, but not so good in this, so yeah, that comes back later, so. Also, when you actually agreed, yeah, a little bit, and just have a kind of look, yeah. As I say, is when you most of the time, I myself, I read the abstract, yeah. Is it self-explanatory? Does it explain, what it's about, yeah? Then I look a bit at the conclusion. Is the conclusion, does it seem correct, yeah? Then I look a little bit at figures and tables, yeah. Do they look very well prepared or they just look shabby, yeah? If figures and tables look really poor, then yeah, two things can happen. Either people are not very good at it, yeah, or basically they haven't spent time on it, yeah. So yeah, so then you have a look, is this a long paper, short paper? And I think when you're reading it and when you're looking at it, do you like it, yeah? Or you don't like it, yeah? Why not, yeah? Think about that. And get a bit of a feel, is this really novel, or is this just something you read, you know, many times before, yeah? I think that's very important. So basically what I do and a lot of people do is what they call the 3-pass approach, yeah? It's kind of 3 times looking at the paper. It's at least 3 passes, yeah? But to make it simple, we say you do 3 passes. In the first pass, yeah, it's about, you spend about 10 to 20 minutes, yeah? You look a little bit over the paper, yeah? You read the title, the abstract, the introduction. You scan a little bit how it's about, you read the conclusion, you glance at the references, and it gives you a feel about the paper, yeah? Is it good? Is it feel right? It's a kind of feeling, yeah, it's kind of subconscious feeling, yeah, and also based on your expertise, does it work or not, yeah? And that's what you should be able then to say, okay, you know, what does this work about, yeah? What's the context, yeah? Why are they doing it, yeah? Is it correct what they're saying, yeah? What are their main contribution or novelty, yeah? And of course, kind of for yourself, if you understand it in 10 to 20 minutes, that indicates the paper is pretty well written, yeah? Then the second pass, yeah, that can take up to an hour, yeah? Then you look more at the content, yeah? You read it more carefully, the sections, yeah? You pay attention to the figures and the graphs, yeah? You say, are they looking good? You know, are they relevant to what is said in the text, yeah? Are the materials and methods consistent with the results, yeah? Are all the materials and methods there, which are described in the results, or vice versa, yeah? Look at statistical analysis, yeah? Is there any statistical analysis or not, yeah? And are they appropriate, yeah? If you can assess that. Look at some references, yeah? Are the references all there? Or are there a lot missing? Or are there also check, you know, if are authors reporting a lot of their references themselves, yeah, kind of self-citation. That's also not a good sign, yeah. And then you have the final pass, which can take anywhere up, let's say, from 2 to 5 hours, depending on how skilled you are, yeah. And here you try to understand the paper in depth, yeah. And kind of you implement a little bit in your head. You think, you kind of dream the paper, that you can think about the paper without seeing it, yeah. Does it make sense? Then you know, in the paper, of course, they make statements, yeah? And you try to identify, what are they saying, yeah? Is it correct what they're saying, yeah? And then at the end, you look at the references, yeah? If you're actually an expert, or over time you will know, yeah, in your field, which are the key references, yeah? Are they there or are they not there? And ultimately, kind of feeling is when you read it, how do these conclusions, result, discussion, how do they meld together, yeah? Is it a kind of flow, a very nice, or what sometimes happens, of course, when there's multiple authors, they may all do specific sections, yeah? And they may not meld, so you get really different styles, yeah? So is there a kind of uniform style? So kind of these passes also give you kind of idea what could be wrong, yeah, with a paper, yeah? What you see in the first pass are kind of obviously wrong things, yeah? On the second pass, you mostly identify some critical issues and some major revision. On the third pass, you see still some major revision, but also minor revision issues. So, okay, and then you have, of course, you've done all this. You remember you already spent probably half a day on this, yeah? Then you have to report on this, yeah, which also can take up to 1 to 4 hours, depending on how much time you have and spent on it, yeah? I think you should kind of write down, what do you think, what's the paper about according to you, yeah? And what do the authors say is the paper about, yeah? Do the title, the abstract, do they match, yeah? Does the title reflect on what is it about? Think a bit about what you really like and what's excellent about, and especially what's new about the paper, yeah? So say something positive if you can, something positive, yeah? Of course, report on the critical minor issues, yeah, for all sections, and provide a kind of overall feeling to the associate editor, yeah. Should it be rejected, or sometimes you may not be sure, then you can say, I think this could be minor or major revision, yeah. You could also, as I said before, is say if you're very good in statistics, yeah, and you identify statistical problems, then you can say that you're very good in that, yeah. Or if you're very good in physics, yeah, but not so good in chemistry, you can say that, yeah. And report all this in a kind of neutral, impartial manner, yeah. So, and I think increasingly important is do not use AI for your review. Just do it yourself, yeah. So learn yourself to improve this. So I think that's all I have at this moment in time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What I also want to say is a kind of peer review is a team effort. Yeah. It's kind of you form a part of the overall decision process on the specific paper. Yeah. And you must remember that this peer review is to improve the quality of papers. Yeah. So in a way, you're helping your peers. Yeah. You're helping your peers not to publish really poor papers. Yeah. You help your peers to publish good papers. And also you learn about your papers, you know, by evaluating your peers. And also you learn that to say, okay, this is really, really poor. Yeah, you will not do this yourself. Yeah. So, and over time, it can take a long time. Yeah. Good reviewers are recognized. Yeah. They're recognized by journals. Journals like good reviewers. Yeah. And then over time, they may ask you to act as an associate editor or a deputy editor. So. Okay, now I will briefly go into our ERC editorial board. Yeah, we want to create a new. At Wiley we want to create and learn and teach people how to review. Yeah.
Well, hello everyone. I am very sorry that I can't be with you in person, but here I am in pre-recorded fashion. My name is Dr. Dan Evans. I'm a senior lecturer in soil science at Cranfield University and the chair of the Early Career Researcher Editorial Board, the ECR Editorial Board for the European Journal of Soil Science. And in the next 5 minutes, I want to showcase what the ECR Editorial Board is, so that if you're interested in becoming involved, you know more about it and where to find more information. So what we've been doing over the last 5 to 10 years is increasingly engage early career researchers into journal decision making and very much placing ECRs at the heart of the journal's culture of inclusion and making sure that we're recognizing all of the wonderful work, the research contributions to the discipline that ECRs make day in and day out. And to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the EJSS and to launch a vision for the future, we launched the journal's first ECR editorial board, one of Wiley's only ECR editorial boards a couple of years ago. And our aim with this was to recruit a very diverse cohort of early career researchers that can be trained and mentored in some of the fundamental editorial decision-making processes with the ambition that those ECR editors transition along this mentoring pipeline to become associate editors for the journal. And we launched cohort 1. As I say, I'm very proud to chair this first cohort that launched in 2024 and ran for a couple of years. We had 4 excellent ECR editorial board members that are all now associate editors of the European Journal of Soil Science, ranging across all areas of soil science as well. So what makes this cohort unique in a sense is not only the fact that it's the first generation of ECR editors for the European Journal of Soil Science, and indeed geographically spread all over the world from Australia to the US, China and the Netherlands and the UK included. But the very fact that we're covering here all aspects or most of the aspects of soil science, from biology, biogeochemistry, physics and structure, hydrology and digital soil mapping, pedometrics and and data analysis. So the first cohort ran from 24 to 26, and all of those ECR editorial board members received mentoring from their deputy editor. We assigned each of those members a deputy editor. We have 4 or 5 deputy editors on the senior editorial team of the journal. Roland being one of those, the editor-in-chief, who I know you would have heard of and heard from, I should say, previously. We also have a cohort building program, a series of activities for the associate board members to get involved with throughout the couple of years that they're with us. And one of the core fundamental activities that each ECR editor does is shadow a paper from its submission to the EGSS all the way through to acceptance and publication. And indeed, for all of our first cohort members, they all shadowed at least 5 papers from submission to acceptance. A wonderful opportunity to understand the process and some of the aspects of decision making that come in the role as an editor for a journal. So in addition to some of those direct activities and mentoring experiences and opportunities with the deputy editors, the ECR editorial board also received webinars from Wiley, the publisher, about the editorial software. And this is particularly important because this software will often be new to these editors at that career stage. And we also want, and this is a continuous activity, we want these editorial board members to help set the direction of the journal. And so helping to future-proof the EGSS is one of the core activities as part of the ECR editorial board. We've just launched a call for cohort 2. The deadline was at the end of July, sadly, but we are going to release more calls in the future. So do check out the website. EGSS, the European Journal of Soil Science, has its own page for the ECR editorial board. You can see the previous members and what they've got up to, and some of our plans for the future. So as I say, each editor on the ECR board spends approximately 1 to 3 years with their deputy editor before they transition into associate editor status. And we want to work with the up and coming generation of soil scientists. So that means you, the early career researchers of soil science and the British Society of Soil Science. So that's a bit of a rundown of the ECR editorial board. If you want more information, feel free to contact me. My email is daniel.l.evans@cranfield.ac.uk. And of course, you can contact the Society for more information about this and to direct your inquiries to me through the Society. Thank you very much. Apologies once again, I can't be with you today, but I hope you enjoyed that. And I look forward to engaging with many of you around the world on the further and future cohorts of the ECR editorial board in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Roland, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can
maybe you
just come in? Can I just come in for a few minutes, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Leo Condron, as you saw before. I just wanted to follow up, just to add a few comments and a few observations on Roland's excellent presentation. Just a little bit, the systems that we work with Wiley at the moment, and most publishers have these systems now, is that when a manuscript is submitted, it undergoes checking. It undergoes I suppose, a vetting process within the publisher, right? And for example, but this before it even gets to the editor-in-chief in my case, and that will check various things like plagiarism. There's also the thorny question of AI and detecting AI and quantifying any use of AI, and that's probably a topic that we could spend another seminar on, another webinar really on, in terms of that is a major challenge going forward. But having gone through those checks, no decisions are actually made. And I'm just speaking from the point of view of soil use and management at the moment. The decision that there are things that are flagged when it comes. All manuscripts come to me as the editor-in-chief, and I then have to take account of what's been fed through the pre-check system, and that sometimes makes decisions very easily, makes decisions easy, but then I have to make a decision that about really look at the scope in terms of how it fits, how a manuscript fits with the scope of the journal. And I've been the editor now for 18 months. And one of the first things I did when I became the editor was to work with my deputy editors to completely revise the scope of the journal. And in some ways, I've got an easier job, or we've got an easier job than Roland, because European Journal of Soil Science covers basically all angles of soil science, really. Whereas soil use and management is actually, as I always say, and Melissa's heard me say this many times, the label's pretty straightforward. It's soil use and management, right? So it's a very focused journal. So a manuscript has to fall within that scope, and that scope is actually being revised. We're just about to undergo another revision by the end of the year. And if I decide that the manuscript is within the scope of the journal, I will look at the abstract. I will look at the cover letter. I'll look at the manuscript sometimes, but that's not often. I'll be honest, that often I don't get a chance to look at the manuscript, because, I mean, I was just saying before we came on, in the last 4 hours, I've got 25 manuscripts have just been sent through to me. So I'm getting anything from 15 to 50 manuscripts a week at the moment. That's not including special issues. But so it's very important for me then to decide whether this manuscript is fit for the journal, and then I allocate a manuscript to one of my deputy editors, and I have about 90 deputy editors at the moment. I have four deputy editors, and I have 9 associate editors. And I will go directly to assign a manuscript to one of those associate editors. And the thing that's very important is that I emphasize to those editors, and I see that 2 of my deputy editors are attending, Melanie and Andreas. The primary job of the associate or the handling editor is to really have a very close look at the manuscript. And decide principally about the novelty. It's novelty. It's new. It's got to be new. We've done the checks. We know that it is a manuscript, and it does meet the requirements, including the requirements for length as well. There are requirements about different type lengths, and then it goes to that associate editor, and that associate editor has a responsibility to then either reject the paper or send it on to reviewers. And that's a very, very important part of the process. And in the case of soil use and management, we have a minimum requirement of 2 reviews. 2 reviews have to be completed before a manuscript can be accepted. And as Melanie explained, Melissa explained, it's a bit of a circuitous process, and it can take a bit of time. But at the end of the day, it then comes back to me at all stages through there. It comes back to me as the editor-in-chief, and then I will make decisions. And up to 18 months, I've never rejected a decision made by an associate editor. I trust my associate and handling editors to do the job. And the reason, when I first came on, we only had 30 associate editors for this journal, and I've increased it to 90. And the reason why I've done that is because this is a very, very important job that people do. And Roland's talked about the time that's involved in reviewing, but the time that's involved in associate editor. So we try and spread the workload as evenly as we can, and as not as thinly as we can, but I'm trying to get it down to less than around about 5 to 7 manuscripts a year for associate editors. But in terms of reviewers, getting back to reviewers, and Roland made this very important point that it's an essential part of publishing. Publishing is so important. Peer-reviewed publication is, as far as I know, the only way, and it's not perfect, of evaluating the quality of research, right? And there are other ways of evaluating it, but peer review remains a central way of evaluating quality. It's not perfect, but it's the one system that we have. And I think early career scientists, researchers, are in the best position in some ways to be reviewers, because they're fresh. They've got the knowledge, they've got the new knowledge. Whereas somebody like myself, and I'm not going to talk about Roland, I mean, I've been around for a long time, and I'm a bit stale probably in many things. So early career people are really fresh in their area, and they're able to give a really contemporary evaluation of a manuscript. So it's very, very important that you get involved in that process. And I don't think, and the only other thing I said that I mentioned, I would just want to mention briefly, is that always, and Roland mentioned it, when people are reviewing, always be polite and be professional. And unfortunately, there are some people who, if you don't like a paper, just be polite about it, because the review process is actually very important. Even if a manuscript is not accepted, and Roland alluded to this, that improves that manuscript. It may go to another journal, but it's actually, again, it's a part of a bigger process. So it's very, very, very important. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say, just to add a few comments to Roland's piece. Thank you.
Thanks. I saw there's a question about if you can volunteer for peer review. Yeah, you can always write to the journal and say, I would like to review a paper, and maybe say what stage you are, yeah, if it's your first, or, you know. So I think it's always good. We're always looking for kind of reviewers, yeah, because at the moment, the most critical point is getting reviewers, yeah. So, and getting good reviews, yeah. Of course, a review saying, is it a good paper? Yes, it is as unhelpful to anyone, yeah. So yeah, so if you do a review, do a good one, yeah. Spend time on it, yeah. So okay. Are there any other questions people have? I'm also happy to answer some questions later, yeah. If you yeah. Jessica, do you see any other questions coming up?
We have a hand raised. Dom, are you able to unmute so that we can ask questions, or would you prefer if we popped it in the box?
Should be able to speak now.
Okay. Thank you very much for this section. I'm Adedoyin. I have 2 questions on the scope mentioned by Professor Liu. So my first question is, does location of a research really matters when considering the scope for the publication or a publisher? For example, if studies conducted in Asia now, and the author is interested in publishing with EJSS, something like that. So that's my first question on the scope. And the second question I want to ask is it possible to make the scope criteria maybe more earlier known to authors or the public, so that when making a choice of a publication or a publisher, it will be easier for the author, and especially maybe there's a rejection or waiting time, it will reduce the waiting time. So those are my 2 questions. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Shall I try, or you want to go first?
I'll try the first one, Roland, if you like.
Yeah.
In terms of, I think the program, the question was about geography, about where does a manuscript come from? Is that right?
Yeah. Location.
I think it was location. Location makes no difference. Certainly, with all use in management, it makes absolutely no difference to the assessment of the journal, to whether we proceed with the journal. The other thing I just wanted to add about that in terms of location, it kind of related to it, is sole use management operates a blind, an author blind system. In other words, when a manuscript goes to a reviewer, the identity of the authors is not actually included. So that was, I don't have time to go into why we did that. We're actually still experimenting with that. We just introduced it relatively recently. And the second question was, I think, about the scope of the journal or the journals on EJS. It should be clear when somebody's submitting a journal, the scope, the stated scopes and aims and scopes of the journal are fairly explicitly stated. As I said, it's easier for us because we're a bit more focused than for EJSS, and maybe Roland wants to comment on that.
Yeah, I think our scope is wider, but our scope is not unlimited. Yeah, our scope is there is some information about it on our website, and also, but I also encourage everybody to read the guide to authors. Yeah, the guide to authors tells you what a journal wants. Yeah. So if a journal wants only 8,000 words, yeah, and you provide 10,000, yeah, you can also use that as reviewers to have a look and say what is needed, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a very, very good point, and we've actually just updated ours, did a comprehensive review. It is important, but yeah, that's very, very important. Thanks, Roland.
Okay, I saw a question about interdisciplinarity. Yeah, this comes a kind of what I said about review papers, that could be quite more complicated. What you can do in that case, in case you feel you only have expertise on a specific part of a review, then you state that. You say, I can deal with the soil physics, but not with the soil chemistry of this. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a feedback question.
Can I just add to that, Roland?
Yeah, of course.
There's also that is a very good point, and we've had a few instances of manuscripts like this, and we will actually increase the number of reviews. Minimum is 2, but I'm just thinking of a recent manuscript that was more of a interdisciplinary nature, and we actually increased the number of reviews because we needed to cover. We knew that it was going to be very difficult to cover that range within a manuscript. So that is definitely a consideration.
Okay, there's a question about the feedback system of how good or how bad your review is. Sometimes we do sometimes rate good reviews, yeah, and very bad reviews, yeah. So, but we don't do that all the time. Only with very kind of exceptional ones, yeah. We can do it, but most of the time we don't do it so much, yeah. But if somebody has a kind of bad review all the time, yeah, the system will pick that up, yeah. If you have, say, 20 reviews in 2 weeks and they're all very short, the system will pick that up.
Yeah. Okay. I'll deal with the next. All right. Okay. What's the next question? Where should engage? Oh, okay. Can I take this one, Roland? The one about why researchers should engage in peer review. It's a very good question. Olivia. All right. Hello. Another one of our associate editors. I think I sort of alluded to this before, Olivia. The thing about it is that if you want to publish, you've got to be involved in the review process. There used to be an old rule that if you published 1 paper, you should review 3. I don't know that's possibly going back, but it is, and I take the point. It's a benefit to the whole system, but the individual credit to your career development varies depending on where you are. I mean, let's be perfectly honest about this. I know of institutions, I'm not going to name them here, that actually don't put a lot of, if you like, credit on their employees, their scientists, their doing peer review. And that's because of time constraints, financial constraints, etc. But I still argue that I always come back to my point that quality of research is still unless somebody can come up with a better system, it's still dependent. Peer review is still the best way of judging quality. And as I say, it's an imperfect system, but it's there. and it's what we have. And I would hope that people who are evaluating the advancement of an early career researcher or academic would take into account the contribution that they make to peer review, not just publishing papers, but also being involved in the process. Roland, you may want to add
yeah,
on to that.
my feeling on this is that by looking at other people's papers as a peer reviewer, you can see what you like. Yeah, what do you like about somebody's paper? Yeah, what you don't like about somebody's paper, or what annoys you? And you kind of feel from, oh, I should not do this myself. Yeah, if you have a paper with really poor figures, then you may think, oh, well, I wouldn't want to make such poor figures. Yeah, so you learn a little bit, a kind of maybe what not to do. Yeah, that's what you certainly learn, what to do. Okay, there's a further question about if I disagree with the reviewer's comments.
It's a good one.
Most of the time, what sometimes happens is that reviewers have different opinions. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're really opposite, then we would invite a third reviewer to kind of, and of course, I myself have a kind of feeling myself if a paper is good or not. So there's also a balance to be had, yeah, and also what kind of arguments are made, why, and also let's say if a reviewer has a kind of very extensive arguments why, and I would disagree with that, then I would be more inclined to follow the reviewer. If somebody says this is not a good paper because this and this and this, then that's too short. Yeah, so that would be my feeling. It's always a kind of, as an editor, you're always a kind of balancing the different different aspects.
Yeah, it also comes. You're right, Roland. It's an editor's job, and it's really the editor's job to evaluate. There's two things. One is that if you're looking at it from the point of view of an editor has to make a decision. And sometimes a reviewer can be quite negative, but as Roland says, if they're being overly negative and unreasonable, then it's up to the editor to whether they take any note of that or they go and get another reviewer. I think that's important. How an author deals with reviewers, that's another seminar. There's all sorts of advice that we could give you on that, right? Yeah, but maybe for another time. Yeah.
We also have a question here in the Q&A box. I'm not sure if you guys have had a chance to see that.
Sorry, I didn't see that. No,
it says, you mentioned review of tables and other data visualizations. How do you avoid personal preferences over micromanaging the author's choices?
Oh,
big question for you there.
Ultimately, a visualization is a visualization of the data. Yeah. If it's simple or complicated, it should add value. Yeah. If it can be done in black and white, in simple form, is as good as it can be complicated. Of course, so I don't think there's an issue there. A figure is good or not good, or a table, and of course I prefer figures rather than tabulations, because tabulation is a lower form of visualization. Yeah. And
good point. Yeah.
And the other thing is that nowadays I say figures and tables, but you can put in much more. Some journals you can put in whole sections. You can put in videos. That's all in the kind of guide to authors what you can put in. Yeah. So, but of course a good figure or good table takes time. Yeah. So
there's a. I think just to add to that, I mean, it's just in general terms, there's a constant. I don't think it will ever end, the debate about whether you put data in tables or figures. I mean, it really is. There's no real answer to that. But obviously, what you want to avoid is putting in both, because that can cause issues in terms of review. But it's it is a tricky area. Yeah.
Okay. Somebody about peer review. I think, but Melissa can also say maybe something about it. But there are systems now which where you can note, and mostly, for example, in the European Journal of Social Science, I think, and other journals, when you review, it says, "Do you want to be acknowledged for this?" So there are peer reviews which then record the fact that you reviewed for European Journal of Social Science or for Social User Management or for any other. Yeah. So it exists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll deal with this question. It says, when a reviewer fails to grasp the innovative aspects of a manuscript and provides a poor review, how does the editor-in-chief intervene? The simple question is we don't intervene. I mean, it's the handling editor that has to balance. When you get two reviews, for example, two reviews that are contradicted, that contradict each other, the handling editor, in my case, it's the handling editor, the associate editor that has to balance that. And they can actually, I've had some cases where the handling editor has contacted me and we have a conversation on email about that, about what to do. And we may decide, or they may decide on their own, or they may decide in consultation with me about which overbalances which. And if there's no decision, then we may actually that's a case where you might go to another reviewer. You may go and get a third opinion, if you like, another opinion, and that gives you another, a bit more of an opportunity to balance things and get the balance right. Yeah, it does happen. It doesn't happen that often, but you know, it does happen.
And also, I'd like to point out that so user management, European Software Science differ a little because so user management have associate editors. We also have deputy editors, so we have another tier. So
just on that point, we also have deputy editors, but there's a slightly different structure of deputy editors, and so in EJSS and so user management. So we do have deputy editors who work very closely with me in terms of but it's a slightly different structure. Yeah.
So that's also a point to make, that different journals have slightly different structures. Different structures, also how much they get and things like that.
Yeah.
And okay, finding reviewers is a difficult task.
Oh.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. I think and of course is you can you can accept, or sometimes what journals also like is, for example, if your supervisor helps you with a review, learning on the job, so of course, and as I said, it's a learning process.
I don't really have any problem with that, because again, it's a bit like what I said about early career researchers being having current expertise and up-to-date expertise. A PhD student, even if they haven't finished yet, will have expertise in that area. So I don't really see any problem, any issue with providing they have a specialization that a PhD student couldn't do it. Yeah.
I would say second and third years or fourth years PhD certainly.
Maybe
a first year PhD not so much, but
no, maybe not.
But ultimately, it's a kind of we're building a kind of information together, and as the associate editor decide, the deputy editor decide, and then so it's all the information together which makes the review. That's what I say. It's a kind of team effort. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Okay. Any other
questions else on the Q&A?
I think this will have to be our last question here, which you can see in the chat. Okay. It's about not feeling confident enough to give feedback.
Oh no!
No.
No, just as I say, you provide a feeling, if it's good or not, and if you can argue in a kind of good way, And as I say, is we as editor-in-chief, we will take in account. We will also look at what you say. No, it's a kind of rejection. It can happen at every level, and of course, in a kind of way is the fact that you already feel that this is not a good paper. Already, it sometimes indicates maybe that's not a good paper. So
Okay, and just on that point, I totally agree with what Roland is saying. You have to trust yourself, and it's also you shouldn't feel intimidated. That's partly why we are trialing blind reviewing, is because it can be intimidating if for example, it's an eminent scientist or academic who's on it. It can be intimidating to review a paper if you know who's on it a little bit. That's one of the reasons why we're trialing this. But you should never feel, you should just feel professional. It's an opinion. We're human beings. It's perfectly acceptable.
And
to have
also,
to feel. I would say you should feel confident. Yeah.
and we will never reveal the reviewers, nor the associate editors.
No.
We don't reveal information, you know. So
Right.
this is also kind of, you do this in a kind of private capacity, in a kind of
Exactly.
you know. So you shouldn't. So yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. So that brings us to 11 o'clock. So on the behalf of the British Society of Soil Science, I would like to express our thanks to Roland, Leo, Melissa, and also Dan Evans for their contributions to the workshop today. Thank you all for attending. You'll find a quick feedback survey in the chat box and also in the follow-up email, which we hope you'll take the time to complete.
Yeah.
The recording of this webinar will also be available after the event via the follow-up email and on our YouTube channel, where you can also watch our previous workshops. Our next Unearth Your Potential workshop is on stakeholder engagement and soil literacy, and this will be taking place on Thursday the 13th of August from 12 till 1:15 p.m. And this is drawing on experiences from the LOIS and ECHO soil projects. This online workshop will explore how community-identified soil challenges can be developed into research questions and collaborative research projects. It's free to register for, and details will be shared in the follow-up email, so we hope to see you again then. We also want to take the opportunity to highlight our upcoming annual conference taking place on the 1st to the 4th of December up in Aberdeen. The overall conference theme is Soils at the Centre of Change, Innovation, Adaptation and Action. And the multidisciplinary event will provide delegates with a fantastic opportunity to see the latest research and developments within soil science. So oral and poster abstract submissions are currently open, so be sure to submit for your chance to present. And we are delighted to confirm that the BSSS Journals are headline sponsors, so it'll be a great opportunity to hear from and speak to the editors. I hope to see you again at future events, and in the meantime, thank you again and goodbye.
Right. Can I just say people are free to contact us if they want to review, send us information. And thanks everybody for listening.
It's brilliant. Thank you.